Howdy, ladies and gentlemen. Uniquely Unqualified Podcast, Episode 7. Apologies for not getting to you on Wednesday, but we are sitting here today, Friday, March 6th, 2026. We've got a few things to go over. We missed stuff, so I'm a little behind the curve, but I still want to rant and rave about it. Of course, we're going to start off with the typical thing we do first on politics. And then actually pretty much the whole thing is going to be politics, and there's just a lot happened. a lot happened this week. So and we'll talk at the end about Britney Spears. What a poor soul. But before we get into any of that, please like and subscribe. It helps me as I build this channel. It doesn't mean much to you. It takes very little effort, but it means the world to me. And even if you don't watch the show or like the content, still like and subscribe. It'll drop to the bottom of your algorithm, and the most you'll see of me is if I post a new video. Anyway, so lots been going on. So again, apologize for Wednesday. We got people coming in and visiting, and so I kind of postponed typical scheduled things this week. And as we sit here on a Friday, I'm doing something that you won't normally catch me doing. But cheers. So, first things first. Texas. I'm not a Texan. I've been stationed in Texas. But this is somewhat inconsequential to me, but two people that were in Texas in Congress have been dethroned. One of them would be considered one of the dumbest fucking people ever, and both of them would be considered a couple of the dumbest fucking people. One of them is an unfortunate fall from grace, once upon a time political hero of mine. I've never met him, but they say don't ever meet your heroes; they will disappoint. So Jasmine Crockett loses her primary by a lot to a man, and we'll talk about him briefly. To James Tallarico, young man. Jasmine Crockett was young too, but let's really think about why Jasmine Crockett was elected. Jasmine Crockett's pretty hot. She's a hot chick. She is, but what comes out of her mouth is some of the dumbest shit I've ever heard. And when you hear her argument about how the Republicans cheated for her to lose her seat, she lost to a Democrat. The only difference between this Democrat and Republicans is that even though he's a Christian and he's a religious man, James Tallarico, he still calls God binary and stuff like that. But Jasmine Crockett was beaten on about how it's racist. It's racist. The Republicans are racist, and the whole reason why she lost was because of racism, and the right wing replaced her with a white man in the South or whatever. Never mind her rhetoric and just parading around. Like, she goes on, she wears these fucking clown outfits and does her hair up to match her clown outfit. And she's a public service member, not a celebrity. She was enjoying celebrity as a public service member. That's a problem. She's a public service member. I don't know why or when we started putting senators and congress people on late night shows. I feel like that might be a relatively recent thing. That's not to say that politicians don't go on these shows. Lord knows presidents have been, when you're campaigning, sure, absolutely. But somebody like Jasmine Crockett is basically running around pulling a Gavin Newsom, just talking out of both sides of her mouth. And you just can't do that. The American people, unfortunately for these folks, aren't as stupid as they think they are. We can see it, we can tell, especially folks in Texas. Folks in Texas don't like to put up with that bullshit. And so when Jasmine Crockett is running around on Jimmy Kimmel or Fallon or Colbert or whoever show she's going on, and she's got her gorgeous smile and her ridiculous clothes and her big hair and everything, and she just kind of goes and bleats on about all these tired ass left-wing big D Democrat political talking points. First of all, these politicians are paid for by a lot of folks in legacy media. And unfortunately, just nobody watches that shit. People don't watch CNN. People don't watch NBC. People watch Fox. But when it comes to the left-wing push, people ain't watching it. Boomers, hardcore lefties, big-time big D Democrats, voters, they still watch it. But it's very low resolution content. And so when you go on to those shows with your Democrat talking points, you yourself then become low resolution content. And so that's Jasmine Crockett. And then she goes out to campaign for Senate, her Senate seat in Texas. And all of a sudden she drops that hood accent and picks up a proper Texas Southern accent and talks about being a gun-toting American. And bitch, you can't do that. Like, you can't do that. I mean, do what you want. But if you do that, you're gonna lose your fucking seat, because you've just exposed yourself to being a lying, backhanded, two-faced puppet for your political party. So I think these people, when they're primaried and they lose their seat, that's no one's fault but their own. And it pains me that there are people like Jasmine Crockett that absolutely have to. Now, I believe she has 300 days left in her seat, something like that. Just because she's voted out doesn't mean that she's not gone right now. She still has time in her seat. But she lost to James Del Tallarico. Another one, Dan Crenshaw. I got a lot to say about this guy. The moment that I stopped being a fan of his politically was when he wanted to beat the drum about putting U.S. forces in Mexico. Now, U.S. forces are constantly in Mexico and Central America. United States Special Forces are constantly moving in and out of Mexico and Central America and parts of South America. Why? Training. So when we were hearing about before, I guess it would have been a year ago, when we were hearing about on the news cycle, U.S. troops landed in Mexico. Well, yeah, but they've been scheduled to do that every so many months, like clockwork, because they're an ally nation, Mexico is, the military is. And so not only do U.S. forces come down to Mexico to help train them, but Mexican forces also go north of the border a lot of times to places like Fort Bliss, Texas, or San Diego, especially the Marines. They go and do a little bit of Navy SEAL training out there in San Diego. So it's a partnership. And so when you hear about when you get all riled up about U.S. Special Forces being in Mexico, it's literally just to get you riled up. They're always fucking here. They're always here. They're always helping. They're always training. The fighting force here. Mexico's fault. They can't fund their fighting force with the proper equipment. But anyway, so I've known this. We've all known this. I've never been a part of a training exercise down here in Mexico, but it's been forever. We've been going on forever. So Dan Crenshaw, as you all know, is a former Navy SEAL, 2nd District of Texas. I think that's Austin. Maybe. Anyway, if not, correct me. My bad. Wears an eye patch. I believe he had his eye damaged in an IED blast, AP blast, anti-personnel blast, where he was on foot moving through a village or a compound or the like, and I believe an IED, I believe he stepped on an anti-personnel explosive device. Anyway, or somebody in front of him or behind him or something, it fucked up his eyes. So he's got this badass pirate eye patch, right? And that really doesn't settle well with me anymore. People that wear awesome fucking accessories that are just like the coolest thing. Typically they're doing a bit of grandstanding and looking for some kind of attention, methinks. Anyway. But it wasn't just the whole Dan Crenshaw talking about invading Mexico. It was the fact that when we followed his career, it became very well known that he started to ostracize himself from his team environment, from his group environment, from his friend group, from the teams, from the SEALs. He proceeded to get angry, fat, and drunk. And then in the internet world or the podcast world, we all saw that he had a falling out with Sean Ryan. I used to think Sean Ryan was kind of a plant. I'm not so sure about that anymore, just because of some of the subjects that he's discussing. However, a plant would do that to get more people on their side. But I digress. Anyway, as soon as he started having a bad time with his peer group, the peer group in those environments will do everything to stick their hand out for you and pull you back up. But if you continue to be a dick to the peer group for, whatever political reasons, Dan Crenshaw was doing the trading thing. He was, not to a large dollar amount, but he was still doing it. And making comments about invading neighbor nations just basically means you're bought. You're bought and paid for. It's a shame. So, there's another guy out there. I thought that he was cool. He was not a SEAL, Special Forces guy. I don't even remember his name at this point. But he, I think he's Valhalla Firearms Training. And this YouTuber, podcast, former Special Forces dude, big old jack bearded guy. Again, I don't know his name. I don't even know what his letter designation in the Special Forces was. I don't know if he was a Bravo or a Charlie or a Delta or a what. I don't know what he was. But I suspect not a whole bunch, because unless one of my people in my friend group outwardly wronged me, I just wouldn't speak ill of them. But he started speaking ill of the likes of people like Tim Kennedy. Now, I think that there's a lot of folks that over-exaggerate their exploitations in their deployments, combat, whatever happened. Could Tim Kennedy have exaggerated? Of course, lots do. But by and large, Tim Kennedy is, I think, an honest player and an all-around badass. You know, it was Tim Kennedy spent his own money going in and out of Afghanistan with private airplanes and private funding and private gear to go retrieve people that were supposed to have left Afghanistan. Tim Kennedy and his team did that. Not in the military, just out of duty, just out of obligation. You know, he spent time there just like me. It's fucking unbelievable the way that we left that place. So the Valhalla Firearms guy attacking somebody like Tim Kennedy, former professional fighter, you know, just he's not making shit up to make shit up. You know, as far as I know, he's got a good paper trail. So, you know, Tim Kennedy's a bit of a loudmouth and a hothead, but by and large, he's a stand-up dude. And I just don't know anything about this Valhalla guy. And so, you know, when I look at his little rack over his shoulder, whatever shoulder he puts it on, and it's, you know, not very extensive, but then he wants to talk shit about somebody else in the teams. It doesn't sit well with me. And so when somebody like Dan Crenshaw does the same, it really upsets me. Really upsets me. You know, the military did a lot for me and my family. A lot of harm, but even more good. And the fact that somebody like Dan Crenshaw, you know, you want to hold these SEALs above board. You want them to be the most elite humans. You know, never mind a fighting force. You want them to be elite humans. And we all fall off. You know, I mean, I went through a big time struggle with alcohol after I was done going in and out of Afghanistan. I got fat. We all, you know, I got in trouble with my command because I was just fucking up, getting arrested, constantly drunk, you know, fat. You know, there was like 2 PT tests I couldn't pass. You know, just shit wasn't going good. We all go there. We all have that problem. But it's like what Commander Willing said on his podcast a long time ago. You know, in the military, they hand you a mission. They give you a mission. They already have a mission. They train you for the mission. They deploy you on that mission. Well, that's not the thing in the civilian life. And so Commander Willing explains, you know, they've trained you to find your next mission. Find your next mission. We're all leaders. We're all leaders. So find your next mission. Your next mission is not becoming a bitter, fat, alcoholic douchebag in the government that clearly is just in that position to enrich himself after whatever point he reached. And so he got dethroned by Steve Toth, another Republican. Admittedly, I know nothing about Steve Toth. I don't feel the need to go too far into it. However, I will say that I know a little bit about James Tallarico, the guy that dethroned Jasmine Crockett. So James Del Tallarico is 36 years old, young guy, younger than me. By the way, I think that we need more God-fearing young men and women in our political scene. I think that the Bernie Sanders, the Mitch McConnells, the Chuck Schumers, those types, I think that they need to go. I think that they need to go. I'm sick and tired of seeing presidents be elected that are, 80 years old. It's 2026. These motherfuckers don't even know that podcasts are bigger than CNN. That's a problem. We need younger people. We need younger, intelligent people, because we're all super smart, right? JFK was a young guy when he was elected president. He was in his 30s. Wasn't he 37 when he got elected? JFK, 38, something like that? Something. Anyway, and he was intelligent, and he had a vision. And if you ask somebody like me, as I sit here today in 2026, and I look at the things that JFK wanted to fight against, he was right, and we should have fought against those things. But those things that we needed to fight against won, and they ended up killing him. Anyway, so James Tallarico is also a religious man. He's a Christian, I guess. There's so many different, I tend towards a belief in God, but when it comes to knowing inside and out all of the differences of Christianity, I have no clue. And frankly, because of all the different messages that everybody wants to say that one person gave you, no, it means this, no, it means that, no, it means this, no, it means that. I don't got time for it, because if you're supposed to live in peace with one another, but you just want to bitch about what somebody said and what it means, it's all tribalism, it's all tribalism. The fact that we've got Episcopalian and, regular Catholicism, and then we've got born-again Christians, we've got Seventh-day Adventists, we've got non-denominational. They all read the same book, we all believe in the same Savior, but we all say it all means something a little bit different. Drives me fucking nuts. So, one of the things that James Tallarico was very popular for, and he lost this fight in Texas, was that he campaigned against all of the 10 Commandments, or the 10 Commandments being put in all of the schools in Texas. And his argument was rational. And his argument was that it shouldn't be mandated to put the 10 Commandments in every public school in Texas, because there's so many other races and religions in these schools. Now, it's not to say that we need to pander and give these other races and religions their religious text on the walls. His position is that if we put one up there, the 10 Commandments, then we should put all of them up there, or none of them up there. And so he believes that because Christ does say that he is the Father, and he is love, and he is forgiveness. And if you just live your life as a good, honest Christian around other people, that is itself gravity. And if you want to convert people to Christianity, you don't want pressure coming from Christianity. It's the same thing like if your parents are pressuring you to be a doctor, or pressuring you to be a lawyer, and all you want to do is just play tennis. Or if your mom was a gymnast and your dad was a college basketball star, and you've got to play basketball, but Dad, I just want to wrestle. You need to play basketball. You're just going to create a rift there. And so it's the same idea that James Tallarico says about the 10 Commandments, and I agree with that. On the other hand, I do think that our education system has gotten way too far away from things like the Pledge of Allegiance and educating our students to the Christian nation that is the United States of America. Even though we allow other races and religions to come in and practice freely without persecution, it doesn't mean that the founding fathers didn't claim that this was a land built on Christian values. They did. And so that's when you talk about the United States of America being a Christian nation, that's what we mean. And we were better for it. And now we've got a bunch of freaking brainless, hedonistic whores, men and women whores, running around out there thinking that they're boys, not girls, and girls, not boys. It's all about the feel good right now. Right now, pleasure. There's no deferment of satisfaction. People aren't wise anymore. Wisdom can be seen in somebody that will not take the small prize now, and they will wait for the larger prize further, even much further down the road. It's a much wiser position. But everybody just wants everything now. Anyway, so clearly Jasmine Crockett's seat is, heavily Democrat. What is she, Dallas? And so I'm regardless of if he's a Democrat or not, I'm glad to see James Talarico in there. Jasmine Crockett's, she's not a good politician. She sucks at politics, obviously. She came in, she was a flash in the pan, she fucking blew it. She blew it. Dan Crenshaw blew it. He was just in there a little bit longer. So, I'll give her dues. Jasmine Crockett, Juris Doctorate from Houston, University of Houston Law Center. She passes the bar, public defender in Bowie County, however you say it. Again, lost to a Democrat. She had her own PLLC, her own law center. She focused on civil rights, criminal defense, and personal injury. And I guess if I'm going to pick on anything, those are the three things that I'm going to pick on. Personally, I find personal injury lawyers absolutely necessary. However, they are absolutely predatory. And I don't like that. I'm going to go after and I'm going to get everything for you. Does anybody remember the lawsuit this fat bitch had against McDonald's, and she won a few $1,000,000 because she herself dropped a piping hot cup of coffee in her lap and then blamed it on McDonald's? Bitch, you ordered a cup of coffee. It's fucking hot. Be careful. How the fuck is that McDonald's fault? When I go to Starbucks or Mickey D's and I want coffee, I want that shit to be hot. Real hot. And they give you a sleeve and an insulated cup and a lid. And a mistake's a mistake. Let's say the poor little fucking 16-year-old that handed you that cup of coffee just didn't get the lid secured on it. Shit. 3rd-degree burns through your jeans, da-da-da-da-da. That ain't worth a few $1,000,000. But that's my opinion. I'm an idiot. Criminal defense. I think both prosecutors and criminal defense attorneys are both slimy fucking people. You hear so much about prosecutors withholding evidence, putting innocent people behind bars just to satisfy their numbers, just to satisfy, I gotta get a win. I gotta win. This is my personal record. It reflects on my career. So I don't give a shit if this guy is innocent or not. We gotta put somebody away and he's it. So that's disgusting. Equally, there are some criminal defense attorneys that will do everything they can to get a murderer off scot-free, minimal sentences. Rapists, it's the same thing. And that's fucked up. That's fucked up. There was a movie with Gerard Butler, Law-Abiding Citizen. And if anybody ever knows or seen or remembers that movie, in the beginning scenes of that movie, this guy opens the door to two assailants outside of his house. These two assailants fuck him up at the door and run in and rape and murder his wife and daughter. One of the assailants had a damn good criminal defense attorney, made a plea deal or a bargain, got minimal sentencing, and a rapist and murderer went free. Well, that happens a lot in criminal defense. And if you're fucking guilty, you're fucking guilty, and you need to pay the price, and you shouldn't be allowed to have a reduced sentence. It's kind of like I see these things on X about, this guy beat his girlfriend's little 4-year-old to death in this blue county, in this blue state, in this blue DA says probation, 2 years, then parole. No, man, you need to be hung for doing that. Anyway, civil rights. I don't know what a young person is doing about civil rights as a lawyer today. I'm kind of worn out on the discussion of civil rights. They're on the books. They're all there. Just I don't. And by the way, I don't find a straight white man heckling or yelling at a transgendered bearded woman walking down the street, heckling them and saying bad things to them. I don't find that a civil rights violation. Freedom of speech, man. It's a free country. You look like a freak. I can call you a freak. I'm not hurting you. Oh, I hurt your feelings. Well, get the fuck over it. You're a freak. So, those are the kind of civil rights I would imagine that are being fought today. Outside of hate crimes, sure, hate crimes falls under civil rights, absolutely. But they just seem like low-hanging fruit. I don't know what Houston law teaches you, what kind of lawyers they pump out into the system. I think good ones. But I guess this is just me being a defiant asshole towards Jasmine Crockett because she's just left such a bad taste in my mouth over the last, 2 years? Just absolute fucking bought and paid for liar, just sent out there to look pretty for the masses. As she's a talking head. That's what she was being used for. Useful idiot, I guess is what you'd call him. So, and I find somebody that has more actual conviction, like James Tallarico, to be far better to be in politics. Dan Crenshaw, Navy SEAL, officer, many exploits. I could imagine why he would turn into a bitter, angry, fat alcoholic. I could imagine. I did for a minute, but then, cooler heads prevail, intelligent minds prevail, and and you realize oh Jesus, everybody fucking hates me. I'm being a dick, and I'm fat as shit, and I need to get this under control. And he didn't. And when somebody that got elected, like Dan Crenshaw back in the day when he got elected, to fall like that, man, you gotta have fucked your position up pretty good. Anyway, so that's what happened not too long ago, a couple days ago. And then the next day, Kristi Noem gets fired. I don't know if she was qualified to do that position, Secretary of DHS. Here in Mexico, they call her the political Barbie. It is pretty interesting when you look at images of Kristi Noem when she was governor or campaigning for governor of South Dakota man, she did not look like what she looks like. Kristi Noem went full OnlyFans model. Great work. For an older lady. She's a smoke show. Even in the face. I hate those big puffy duck lips. They're fucking gross to me. But she pulls it off. Otherwise, I think Kristi Noem is actually an intelligent woman. You know, she ran ranches and, you know, she's not a dummy. She's a businesswoman. But I think she just might be a little too conservative for the national voting public. Just because, you know, the whole ICE thing, when she was, I think, you know, sometimes you can't just rush in and spank your misbehaving child. You know, sometimes I think you have to isolate the child. And you have to bring the child to an exhausted point where you can, you know, sit down and say, okay, now that you're done screaming, we need to talk about this. And she didn't do that. You know, she kind of looked at these leftist state governments and said, fuck you, we're coming in, and this is all your fucking fault. She's right. However, in 2025, 2026, the political arena just can't be handled like that. It's unfortunate. You've got to be a politician. To a degree, part of the reason why Trump is facing so much backlash is because of the amount of action. Good or bad, it's action. Do it. Boom, make it happen. Boom, make it happen. Boom, get it done. Boom, make it happen. Boom. And sometimes it seems erratic. Sometimes it seems unorganized, unplanned. You know, God knows that this thing with Iran, I went on about it on Monday. You know, these people don't look at the second, third, and fourth order consequences of these things. You know, and like I said, when you put the amount of pressure that you put on the Mexican government to whack the head of the actual leader of the country, and then you have to tell the tens of thousands of U.S. citizens that live and vacation here to shelter in place. That's a bad move. You shouldn't be telling your American citizens anywhere that they need to shelter in place because there's people burning buildings down and shit. That's a bad move. If you did that and that put Americans in harm's way, you're wrong. You should have done it different or not done it at all. Equally in Iran, the fact that there was, you know, even the argument of sleeper cells, and then the day after there's the day of there's a shooting in Austin, Texas. Not a lot of people died, but there's still this radicalized shooting in Austin, Texas. And, you know, if you make an action on the other side of the globe and you have to tell the American people, just don't go to the movies for a minute because these sleeper cells might be activated and you might be in danger. Hey man, fuck, why the fuck can I just walk down the street every damn day safely? But I can't because you fuckers are off doing regime change and stupid shit in a part of the world where it's gonna go wrong. It's gonna go bad. I just don't. JD Vance, Marco Rubio, you just can't fucking tell me that these guys, Pete Hegseth, that these guys are gonna keep us out of these long drawn out conflicts. If they do, great. But I don't think so, because after Kristi Noem, we're gonna talk about Cuba. Anyway, so, you know, the Democrats voted to not fund the Department of Homeland Security. One of the little demands that they wanted was that they wanted Kristi Noem out of her position. Well, I think that the Democrats have really overplayed their hand. They think that they're being hardcore negotiators like Trump or whatever. But a move like this is only going to make them look worse. You know, the fact that it's just because Trump, but Trump. That's your only fucking argument. Like, you're literally doing nothing. You're keeping the country shut down. There's people that, you know, don't have a job anymore. They're on furlough. They're blah, blah, blah because Trump. We got to stop Trump. We got to stop Trump from unraveling all the bad shit that we've done for the past decades. And so, anyway, they demanded Kristi Noem be fired. Well, she got fucking fired. They got their way. And then they didn't restore funding to the DHS. So fuck them. It's called quid pro quo. This for that. You don't get it all in one shot. It's one step at a time. Isn't that weird? Isn't it weird how the Democrats want, what do we want? What do we want? Change. When do we want it? Now. What do we want? Radical, crazy, unsurmountable, unaccomplishable change. When do we want it? Now. What do the conservatives say? It's like what Dr. Peterson says. What do we want? Incremental change. When do we want it? In due time. These people fucking suck, man. They're so shitty. They're so fucking shitty. And they want Department of Homeland Security to be abolished. Big old chunk of them that are still in their seats voted for the DHS when W. Bush was still in office. U.S. politics game is fucking retarded. It is the most slimy, icky, crazy game out there. And none of these people give a shit about you or me or anybody on the other side of that door or anybody out that window. Anywhere. They care about themselves, enriching their own lives. They're completely disconnected. They have no fucking clue what regular life is like for the American public. They have no clue what we actually want or need. And so whatever moves that they make is literally just to have their career, I guess. You know, whatever. It's shitty. So Kristi Noem's out. I guess we'll see who gets put in. I don't suppose it would be somebody even more hard line. I bet you see somebody pretty ideologically aligned with Kristi Noem go in there, but maybe just with a cooler head. Maybe with more of less, you know, fucking claws out for the Democratic Party. Fucking Kristi Noem hates the Democrats. She fucking hates them. And that's really what you kind of see and hear when she goes and talks about this stuff. And you know, rightfully so, man. I find these hardcore people, not all of them, but by and large, all of these the folks in the Democratic Party, man, fuck those people. You know, fuck a lot of the people in the Republic. I just blasted Dan Crenshaw. So I'm not taking one side or the other. One side's a little heavier in the bullshit than the other side, and sorry, but the Democrat side is considerably heavier in the bullshit. If for no other reason, all of the don't stand if you if somebody says, hey, if you think the function of government is to protect the rights and liberties and freedoms of American citizens, stand up. And they don't stand up, that's the Democrats, baby. Fuck them. Fuck them. If they really truly make a show of not caring enough about their own constituents. Now, I'm sure that some of them, like Ilhan Omar, are elected into office by people that shouldn't be voting. I'm sure. So therefore, she is for her constituents, she's not standing up. I'm sure. But a lot of them, those are American citizens voting for you. and you will publicly and on television, live television, be that defiant, that just makes you look like the world's biggest piece of shit. The trans thing, the censorship thing, that's all on the Democrats right now. We're not talking about back in the day. I get it. You know, we conservatives wanted to, Republicans wanted to, abolish rap music and you know, like, gotta have explicit content on the albums. And look at what stupid idea that is. Like, rap exploded in part because there was a sticker on that says they say naughty words in this album. And so all the young kids are like, ooh, what naughty words are they gonna say? And so they go and buy the fucking music. Just leave it alone. Just leave it the fuck alone. You don't need to touch every goddamn thing that you see. Anyway, so, and the Democrats go off on this fucking trans thing, man. That was new. Crazy. So, you know, yeah, America has a problem, and I think that problem lies greatly within the Democratic Party. They think that they have a bargaining chip with this whole DHS funding thing. I bet we're going to see that they don't. You know, they're a bunch of shitty little backhanded fuckers. It's, you know, maybe you didn't have to give the administration everything after she was fired, but have some good faith negotiation. Like, okay, thanks for giving her the boot. Now we'll concede to this thing, but under these circumstances next. And then the other party says, you fuckers, we talked about me getting rid of this bitch. And then you'd give us this, yes, but we have to make sure that this is a working thing for all of us under, okay, so you can extend negotiations. It happens all the time. But the way that they're doing this move, it's gonna fuck them. It's gonna fuck them hard in the long run. Because Trump could easily just as easily appoint somebody even fucking more hardcore than Kristi Noem. You know, he could redesignate the employees in DHS that aren't furloughed to be doing a bunch of work that would still get illegal people out and all that sort of stuff. So Democrats, like, they need to watch it. And I hear a lot of stuff about how they're gonna beat everybody in the midterms. Man, I don't know. I don't think anybody fucking knows. Last time midterms under Joe Biden said, we're gonna see a red wave. Nope. So maybe learn from just a couple of years ago, folks. But who knows? They could. Anyway. So yeah, Kristi Noem's out. maybe you know what I was thinking about this when I saw this news. After Kristi Noem was fired, the Democrats came out and said, okay, but everything else that we promised, as long as you fired Kristi Noem, yeah, now you got to do more. We're not going to capitulate anything that we said. I think it would be fucking hilarious. And maybe it's already been done and I just haven't seen it yet. I think that it would be hilarious if Trump put Kristi Noem back in her position for the Democrats not doing their part. That would be a big negotiating tip for them. Anyway, Cuba. Cuba's a communist country, but we have people in our country that just have a fucking hard-on for wrecking other people's shit. I understand that Marco Rubio is Cuban. By the way, has anybody seen the ears on that guy? Does anybody else see the fact that this motherfucker's ears are like as big as my hand on the side of my head. This guy has massive, his ears are like Jimmy Durante's nose. Anyway, Marco Rubio's had a hard-on for Cuba for forever. His family's from there. I think they've suffered the hardships of the Communist Party. And there's a bunch of memes out there that make it look like you're going to see the new president of Cuba, Marco Rubio. Hilarious, but not, because the whole Venezuela thing, that went pretty smooth. And even though everybody was up in an uproar about it, it came and went, kind of exactly how the Trump administration wanted it to go. I understand, the Monroe Doctrine basically says that this is our hemisphere. This is the United States' hemisphere. And we will not allow any foreign or adversarial influence on our hemisphere. And over decades and decades, we've just allowed communism to plague our hemisphere, and we've allowed China to come in and purchase our U.S. land, and Japan to purchase U.S. land, and China to own. China was going through with a deal to own the Panama Canal. Why the fuck would we allow China to own the Panama Canal? Well, because they do more trade. It doesn't fucking matter. It's in our backyard. We don't need to own it, but China can't certainly own it. They could raise all prices on only American ships and goods if they wanted to, if they owned it. Yes, they could. Yes, they fucking could. If you want to talk about choking America out economically, give the Panama Canal over to China. We can't do that. You can't have Venezuela and their Communist Party refusing to do anything with the United States of America, meanwhile selling their heavy crude oil to our adversaries, American adversaries. Can't do that. Iran, can't do that either. Like, America can't be doing this to Iran. I don't think Iran has ever been a threat to America. Oh, the fucking largest sponsor of state terrorism or whatever, largest funder of state-sponsored terrorism. If America wants a strong border and keep this shit out of their border, that's our problem to solve. We don't need to go out and reach them and say, no, just put a lock on the gate. Just put a lock on the gate. If they come knocking, then we can do something about it. Oh, but then you have American lives in danger. No, you have defenses. You got a navy. You got a fucking border. This whole thing with Iran is all fucking. It's not all Netanyahu and Israel. This thing with Iran has been beaten on about it for decades. But we can't. Two things. We can't have theocracy in 2026. Radical theocracy, which the Ayatollah Khamenei was a radical theocrat. Abso-fucking-lutely. Can't have that. We can't have that. We can't be doing that. But it exists. That's not our fucking problem, man. It's not our problem. A bunch of fucking people want to say, we need to liberate the Iranians and dirt. But you guys don't think one fucking moment about the poor, impoverished little girl that lives in the single-wide trailer with an abusive father or mother, you don't give that one thought, but you sit there and say, we gotta do something about Iran. Because I care about Iran. No, man, fuck you. Fuck you. Iran just wasn't a fucking problem. It just wasn't a problem. You know, and truly, if it's that big of a fucking problem, Israel, have at it. You know, give us a full report on how it goes. You know, but we're not doing this. We're not doing this. So now we got Cuba. And you know, unfortunately, in the United States and for the left, you're going to see, just like in Venezuela when Maduro got captured, you're going to see refugees from that country, honest refugees from that country, dancing in the street. Just like you see with the refugees, the oppressed Iranian refugees dancing in the street. And Cuba, man, Florida is going to be a fucking party if the U.S. can go and get the Communist Party out of Cuba. You know, Cuba's pretty. Cuba's beautiful. You'd want to go there. You really would. But just like theocracy, we can't have communism anymore. You can't do it, man. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. It hurts too many people, enriches too little people. All the people that it enriches are at the tip of the spear, and everyone else is just fucked. And you can't do that. And that's how it goes 100% of the time. There is no example of it. You can't do it right. Don't bring the argument to the table. It's an impossible endeavor. So we can't have communism anymore either. We know too much. But goddamn, we also know too much about the United States of America putting their thumb on shit. I hope this Iran thing chills out lickety-split. It's 5-6 days since. Tomorrow's day 7. Tomorrow's 1 week. 6 days since. We continue to sink their ships. We consider to cripple their infrastructure, their military and defense infrastructure. Maybe it will only last a couple weeks. I'll believe it when I see it. And if it does, especially by midterms, we all need to reflect on that and say, phew, shit, man. This guy got this done quick, fast, and in a hurry. And if things look like they're on an upswing, then good for them. This Cuba thing, I think, will go pretty much by way of the Venezuela thing. We'll probably go in and pick up political leaders. Do away with them, and then Marco Rubio will just be the boss of Cuba, I guess. I don't fucking know. What I do know is I grew up, what the fuck? I was born in the 80s. There was Desert Storm, Panama. I don't really know which one was first right now. Cheers. But then, there was Afghanistan and Iraq. And the most important, like the adult years of my life, were Afghanistan and Iraq. And I watched those things happen. And I was a part of it. And then I watched the whole Ukraine-Russia thing. And nobody fucking talks about that. You don't see shit about it on the news at all. That Zelensky guy is still in charge over there. And America's still giving them fucking money and equipment. So when I see, again, like I said on Monday, the Iran thing, these conflicts, I think that the Venezuela thing was probably a Trump idea. The Cuba thing's probably a Trump-Rubio idea. But Iran was Trump's admission price to the presidency. If you don't want to be a martyr, if you want to do this term and ride off into the sunset with whatever legacy you can have, you're doing Iran. I think that's what Iran's about. And that's the corruption of our government. And I think Cuba is probably a donor issue too. We haven't given a fuck about what Cuba's doing. Yeah, do it. There's sanctions. They got badass cars down there. A bunch of 1950 Chevys and Studebaker. Fuck, man, I saw a badass Studebaker, fully restored. Awesome Studebaker down here. Anyway, but, I just don't want to see the U.S. get tangled up in all this shit. I can see how Donald Trump would want to do all this stuff in as fast as possible so that the Americans would basically fucking forget that it all happened. But yeah, so now we're gonna fuck up Cuba. However we do. And it's happening, folks. Cuba's happening. I think Mexico was a bunch of bluster. Well, I think Mexico is probably 3 or 4 on the list if they don't cooperate or get in line or whatever. Unfortunately, going after the cartels is going after the Mexican government. They are the government down here. They keep everything fucking squared away, man. They do. The story that you guys get in the United States it's not exactly true about the cartels. Do they manufacture drugs? Yes. Do they make a lot of money off of trafficking in persons? Yes. Do they go and, especially nowadays with Jalisco being in charge, do they go and just randomly butcher Mexican civilians? Absolutely not. Do they just go and randomly kidnap Americans? Absolutely not. It's just not true. It's just not true. My buddy's daughter is here, and there was a big old thing back in the States about her coming to visit. 2 weeks after Jalisco's boss was taken out. That whole thing, a couple of cars on fire, a couple of buildings on fire, that whole thing lasted a couple of days. Really, a couple of days. But then I asked my friend's daughter, well, what happened in Minneapolis a month ago, right? Oh, no, I don't. How the fuck do you not know that Minneapolis, 800 miles north of you, or wherever the fuck it is, how the fuck do you not know that place is burning to the ground from radical, blue-haired, bearded, dressed fucking men in a dress and middle-aged, view-watching fucking women? How do you not know that that's going on in your own fucking country? But you think that because there was 3 states where there was a little bit of unrest down here, that the whole goddamn country's burning? Come on, man. Come on. Get with the fucking program. Anyway, we don't need to be fucking around with Cuba, man. But, again, I understand American hegemony on this side of the globe. And it is right. Strategically, we are placed in a very, very special spot on this planet. Keeps us safe. And that's what we should be considering and focusing on as our safety. Now, If you've got a bunch of wasps' nests up in your soffits outside, you got to take them out. You can't just let the wasps hang out on your property while you got toddlers playing in the yard. You got to kill them. So think of it that way with this Venezuela, Cuba kind of shit. But so help me God, if the United States government does anything to Mexico, so help me God, like I'm going to do something. Britney Spears got arrested for a DUI. I'm so sad for her. I'm truly sad for her. Seems like Shia LaBeouf's just a fucking douche. But I am so sad for Britney Spears. She was literally like, if you were to put Britney Spears at her like Hit Me Baby One More Time day today, she'd still be the hottest chick in the world. And now she's just fucking weird looking, and she does these goofy dances, and she's alcoholic, and she gets arrested, and she had her kids taken away from her, and all sorts of stuff. I watched an interview with Britney Spears. I watched it recently, but it was when she was like 11 or 12 years old. I think she was still in the Mickey Mouse Club. And it was like this old British broadcaster asking an 11-year-old about her boobies. I mean, could you imagine how fucked up that little girl was by the time she turned 17, 18 years old? Jesus Christ, man. Macaulay Culkin barely got out alive. You expect a super attractive little blonde girl that can dance and sing to make it out alive. Man, that system ruined that poor woman. And it is the saddest thing I think that I've ever seen. I look at Britney Spears at this point as the fucking stray dog on the road where you're just like, oh, Jesus, just come here. Let me give you a bath, get you some food, some flea and tick medication, and a bed. Just calmate, just chill out, calm down. You're safe now. This poor girl, man, had everything taken away from her. And, and I don't think it's so much her fault. I think that the surrounding environment is at fault. I think she couldn't mentally and emotionally handle it. So that's what I think is at fault. So, well, end of episode 7. Thank you guys so much. Again, Uniquely Unqualified Podcast. Please like and subscribe. It helps me as I grow this channel. Even if you don't like the content, like and subscribe anyway. It'll fall to the bottom of your algorithm, and the most you'll see of me is if I post up a new video. Until Monday, hopefully some crazy shit happens this weekend. Adios.